Awareness is the first step, because until you bring something into the light of your own consciousness, it continues to run silently in the background of your life, influencing the way you feel, act, and respond without you even realizing it. Most people spend their entire lives reacting to circumstances, as if they are victims of what happens to them, not recognizing that it isn't the event itself that creates their suffering, but the way they are unconsciously processing it. When you find yourself trapped in a situation, whether it is literally in an elevator with someone who makes you uncomfortable or metaphorically trapped in a cycle of frustration, fear, or doubt, the very first thing you must do is pause long enough to notice what is actually happening within you. Most individuals rush to blame the outer world. This is happening because of him, because of her, because of them. Yet the real prison is not the four walls of the elevator or the presence of another person. It is the stream of unchecked thoughts and feelings that begin to spiral the moment the event unfolds. When you cultivate awareness, you are no longer a passive passenger being carried by emotions. You become the observer, the one who sees clearly what is rising in the body and mind. It's a subtle but profound shift. Instead of saying, "I am angry," you begin to notice, there is anger present. Instead of saying, "I am afraid," you can become aware enough to recognize, fear is showing up in my mind. This single shift creates space between you and the feeling. That space is the seed of freedom. Because as long as you are fully identified with the emotion, you cannot change it. You will act out of it, you will speak through it, you will make decisions clouded by it. But the moment you observe it with awareness, you realize, I am not my anger, I am not my fear, I am not my resentment, I am the one noticing it. Consider how this plays out in everyday life. You step into an elevator and suddenly it halts between floors. If you are unaware, panic instantly takes over. Your breath shortens, your chest tightens, your thoughts race. What if I'm stuck forever? What if no one comes? What if something terrible happens? The feelings spiral so quickly you hardly realize what is happening. But if you bring awareness, the situation is experienced in a completely different way. You notice your body's first reaction, the quickened heart rate, the rush of adrenaline. But instead of being swept away, you step back internally and observe. My body is reacting. My mind is imagining danger. But in this moment, I am safe. The awareness calms you because you have separated the fact from the story. The fact is you are standing in a box between floors. The story is, you are doomed, powerless, trapped. Without awareness, you drown in the story. With awareness, you rise above it. The beauty of awareness is that it doesn't require you to fight your negative feelings or push them away. In fact, the harder you resist them, the stronger they grow. Awareness works like sunlight dissolving mist. When you bring light to what you feel, the heaviness begins to dissipate on its own. For example, if irritation arises because of someone's words, your first instinct may be to snap back or hold resentment. But when you notice irritation simply as irritation, you don't have to act on it. You can watch it, breathe through it, allow it to pass. This doesn't mean the other person is right or wrong. It means you are no longer controlled by the energy of irritation. And that is the very essence of freedom. Awareness also helps you recognize patterns that otherwise remain invisible. Many of the negative emotions people feel are not even about the current situation. They are echoes of old wounds, conditioning, and beliefs. Perhaps as a child you felt abandoned, and now every time someone ignores you, you feel anger or sadness. Without awareness, you think the present event is the cause, but in reality, it is only a trigger for something deeper. Once you observe this, you begin to see the pattern clearly. This is not just about my neighbor. This is not just about being in an elevator. This is an old feeling resurfacing. That clarity is healing because once a pattern is visible, you can choose whether to continue feeding it or to break free from it. Another aspect of awareness is learning to listen to your inner dialogue. The words you silently repeat to yourself are powerful. If you are unaware, those words often run unchecked. I'm not safe. I can't do this. I'm stuck. I'll never get out. Each sentence fuels fear and anxiety. But when you become aware, you can interrupt the dialogue. You can notice, I am telling myself a story of being stuck. I am imagining the worst outcome. That recognition opens the possibility to replace the story with a new one. This is temporary. Help is on the way. I have the strength to remain calm. The difference between the two inner voices is life-changing, and it all begins with the awareness of what you are silently saying to yourself. Finally, awareness is not something you practice only in moments of crisis. It is a way of living. It is the habit of checking in with yourself, of noticing the subtle rise and fall of emotions throughout the day. When you consistently practice this, you strengthen the muscle of observation, so when bigger challenges arise, you are not swept away by panic or negativity. You have already trained yourself to watch, to notice, to separate who you are from what you feel. That habit transforms every area of life: relationships, career, health, and personal peace. It is the first and most essential step to overcoming negative feelings because without awareness, no real change can begin. Once you are aware, you have taken yourself out of the automatic cycle and placed yourself in the position of choice. And when you have the power of choice, every situation, no matter how uncomfortable or challenging, becomes an opportunity to grow into a higher version of yourself. Energy flows where attention goes, and this simple truth carries profound implications for the way we experience life. Every thought you hold in your mind is like a seed, and that seed grows into a feeling, then into an action, and eventually into a result. When negative feelings arise, most people keep watering them with their attention. They replay the event over and over again. They feed the fear with worst-case scenarios. They rehearse the anger by repeating what was said. And they let the irritation expand by giving it constant focus. What they do not realize is that the more energy they give to those feelings, the stronger and more dominant they become. To shift out of negativity, you must deliberately redirect your attention to a higher frequency, because what you focus on expands. If you dwell on problems, the problems appear larger. If you dwell on gratitude, love, or even the smallest positive detail, the energy of that feeling grows and gradually overtakes the negative. Imagine for a moment being inside that elevator with someone who unsettles you. Your first instinct might be to focus on everything wrong with the situation, the confined space, the tension, the inability to leave. Each time you think, I hate this, the feeling grows heavier. Your breathing tightens, your body stiffens, and your mind races. But if instead you consciously choose to shift your focus, the experience changes. You might direct your attention to something neutral, the sound of your own breath, the sensation of your feet on the floor, the fact that the lights are still on, or even the thought that help is just a call away. These may seem like small details, but they redirect your mind away from the spiral of fear and into a space where calm is possible. In that moment, you are not pretending the situation is perfect. You are simply shifting the energy by choosing what to focus on. The human mind has an incredible ability to magnify. It can magnify fear until it consumes you, or it can magnify hope until it uplifts you. This magnification is governed by your attention. For instance, if you wake up in the morning and immediately focus on what went wrong yesterday, you begin the day carrying the weight of frustration. But if you wake up and intentionally bring your attention to one thing you are grateful for, a comfortable bed, a chance to start fresh, a warm meal, you immediately shift the vibration of your day. The outer circumstances may not have changed at all, but your internal state has shifted, and because of that shift, you begin to see new possibilities. Energy is never neutral. It is always moving in one direction or another, toward expansion or contraction, toward growth or stagnation, toward positivity or negativity. That is why becoming deliberate about where you place your attention is so critical. If you continue to focus on what you dislike, you are unconsciously pouring energy into it, and it becomes more dominant in your life. On the other hand, if you discipline yourself to notice the good, however small, you redirect energy into building a more empowering reality. Think of it as turning a dial on a radio. If you keep the dial tuned to a station of worry, that is the only sound you will hear. But by shifting the dial, by redirecting attention, you tune into a completely different frequency, one filled with calm, trust, or even inspiration. One of the most effective ways to shift energy is through gratitude. Gratitude instantly moves your attention from what is missing to what is present, from what is wrong to what is right. Even in the most uncomfortable situations, there is always something to acknowledge: the fact that you are alive, that you are breathing, that you have endured challenges before and survived them, that you are being given another moment to learn. When you choose to focus on gratitude, the negative feelings begin to lose their grip, because gratitude and resentment cannot occupy the same space. The moment you redirect your attention to appreciation, your energy elevates. Another way to shift energy is to visualize what you want rather than what you fear. The mind does not distinguish strongly between reality and vivid imagination. It reacts to the pictures you hold inside. If you are stuck in a tense moment, and you continue to imagine the worst outcome, your body responds with stress. But if you close your eyes and imagine the situation resolving smoothly, or imagine yourself walking out safely and breathing fresh air, your energy begins to calm. This doesn't guarantee the exact outcome, but it changes your vibration in the present, which in turn influences the way you act, speak, and perceive the moment. Breath is also a tool of shifting energy. Most people, when caught in negative feelings, breathe shallow and fast without realizing it. By bringing attention to the breath and deliberately deepening it, you redirect focus inward and create space for calm. Each inhale becomes a reminder that you are alive. Each exhale becomes a release of tension. Something as simple as focusing on breath moves your energy from panic to presence. This is another example of attention determining energy. What you focus on expands, and the breath expands peace if you choose to give it your attention. Consider also how this principle operates in relationships. If you constantly focus on what you dislike in another person, your energy toward them becomes heavy, resentful, or hostile. But if you shift your attention to even one quality you appreciate, their persistence, their sense of humor, their ability to listen, you change the way you feel in their presence. This does not mean you ignore reality. It means you choose to direct energy into the qualities you wish to see grow. What you appreciate, appreciates. By focusing on higher qualities, you encourage them not only within yourself but also within others. Shifting energy is not about denial, it is about direction. You are not pretending that negativity doesn't exist, but you are refusing to feed it. You are reclaiming your power to choose where your energy flows. Every moment presents a fork in the road. Will you continue to feed the fear, or will you direct attention to something that strengthens you? Will you replay the insult, or will you choose to think of something that makes you smile? Will you magnify the problem, or will you magnify the possibility? This choice, made repeatedly, rewires your experience of life. By practicing the art of shifting energy, you train yourself to break the automatic cycle of negativity. The more you do it, the easier it becomes. At first it may feel forced. You may have to deliberately remind yourself, shift your attention, choose gratitude, focus on calm, but over time, it becomes second nature. Your mind learns the habit of moving toward higher energy, and eventually it becomes your default setting. This is how small, conscious acts of attention lead to profound transformation. Because wherever attention goes, energy follows, and where energy flows, life grows. Every experience in life can be viewed through more than one lens, and the lens you choose determines the meaning you attach to it. Reframing a situation does not mean denying what is happening. It means choosing to interpret it in a way that empowers you rather than diminishes you. Two people can go through the exact same event and walk away with completely different emotions because one has chosen to frame it as a disaster while the other has chosen to frame it as an opportunity. The external circumstances may be identical, yet the internal experience could not be more different. This is the power of perspective, and it is one of the greatest tools available when dealing with negative feelings. Imagine once again the scene of being trapped in an elevator with your neighbor. One person might say, "This is unbearable. I'm stuck. This is a nightmare." Their focus is entirely on the limitation, on the lack of control, on the discomfort. The result is an escalation of panic and fear. Another person, however, might say, "This is inconvenient, but maybe it's giving me a chance to slow down. Maybe I can learn something about myself in this moment. Maybe I can use this pause to breathe, to reflect, to notice what I usually overlook." The situation itself has not changed. The elevator is still stuck. The neighbor is still there. But the meaning given to the event changes everything. In the first case, the moment becomes a cage. In the second, it becomes a classroom. The human mind naturally wants to label experiences as good or bad, safe or dangerous, comfortable or uncomfortable. But often, these labels are automatic reactions rooted in habit rather than truth. Reframing is the conscious decision to question those labels and replace them with new interpretations. For example, if someone criticizes you, your automatic frame might be, "They don't respect me, they are attacking me, I must defend myself." That frame generates anger or hurt. But if you reframe, you might see it differently. This is feedback. Even if I don't agree with how they delivered it, perhaps there's something I can learn. Or perhaps this is a chance to strengthen my patience and not let outside voices dictate my peace. By shifting the frame, you shift the emotional response, which in turn changes your energy and your behavior. Reframing also involves seeing beyond the surface. What seems like an obstacle in the moment can often be the very thing that propels you to grow. Many of the greatest transformations people experience come disguised as challenges. Someone loses a job and feels devastated, but later they realize it pushed them to pursue their true calling. Someone faces rejection in love and feels broken, only to discover it led them to a healthier and more fulfilling relationship. The event itself did not change, but the meaning attached to it shifted over time. When you learn to consciously reframe in the moment, you don't have to wait for hindsight to reveal the hidden blessing. You can begin to see it right now. Reframing does not mean ignoring difficulties. It means widening your perspective so that the difficulty is not the only thing you see. If you only focus on the negative angle, the situation looks fixed and hopeless. But when you deliberately ask, "What else could this mean? What else could this teach me? How else could I view this?" you open doors in the mind. This practice expands your vision beyond limitation and reveals choices that were invisible before. In the elevator example, instead of thinking, "I am trapped," you might reframe it as, "I am being given a pause I didn't expect." Maybe this is a chance to test my ability to stay calm under pressure. Maybe it's an exercise in patience. Maybe it's a reminder that I am stronger than I realize. None of these thoughts change the outer condition, but they completely transform your inner experience. Reframing also allows you to shift your relationship with people. If your neighbor, colleague, or partner does something that irritates you, the immediate frame might be, "They are disrespectful. They don't care. They are against me." But if you pause and reframe, you might consider, maybe they are acting from their own pain. Maybe they don't even realize the impact of their words. Maybe this is a moment for me to practice compassion instead of judgment. The situation with the person hasn't changed, but your interpretation softens your response, reduces negativity, and creates the possibility for understanding. A powerful example of reframing is turning fear into fuel. Most people frame fear as a sign to stop. "I feel nervous, therefore I shouldn't do this." But reframing transforms fear into a sign of growth. I feel nervous because I am expanding, because I am stepping into something new, because I am about to grow. In this frame, the same sensation that once held you back becomes a signal that you are moving in the right direction. The elevator of fear, which once seemed like a trap, becomes a ride upward to a new level of strength and courage. What makes reframing so transformative is that it gives you back control over your interpretation, even when you cannot control the external event. Life will always present situations beyond your control, delays, disappointments, unexpected encounters, but how you interpret them is always within your power. When you frame them as punishments, you suffer unnecessarily. When you frame them as lessons or stepping stones, you draw out value and meaning. The act of reframing literally reshapes the way the brain processes information, because your mind begins to look for empowering interpretations automatically the more you practice. Reframing is not about pretending everything is positive when it isn't. It's about choosing a perspective that supports your growth rather than drains your energy. It's about realizing that meaning is never fixed. You are the one attaching it, and therefore you have the power to shift it. By reframing a situation, you change the story you tell yourself, and the story you tell yourself determines the feelings you experience. The same moment can either lock you into negativity or lift you into resilience depending on how you decide to see it. Life is a continuous stream of events, and in every single one of them, there exists a gap between what happens and how you respond. Most people never recognize this gap. They move instantly from stimulus to reaction, as though their emotions and actions are dictated by the external world. Yet within that small space lies the greatest freedom we have. The freedom to choose our response. This choice determines the quality of our experiences and ultimately the direction of our lives. When negative feelings arise, whether it is fear, anger, resentment, or anxiety, the habitual tendency is to react impulsively. Words are spoken that cannot be taken back, actions are taken that create regret, and decisions are made that add to suffering. But when you recognize that you have the ability to choose your response, you begin to reclaim your power from circumstances. Consider being trapped in an elevator with someone who makes you uneasy. The automatic reaction may be irritation, panic, or hostility. That reaction seems natural because the mind and body are conditioned to respond quickly to discomfort. But pause for just a moment, and you will realize that you are not bound to that reaction. You can take a breath, notice the feelings rising within you, and then decide how to respond. You might choose calm instead of panic. You might choose silence instead of conflict. You might even choose to strike up a conversation rather than let discomfort dominate the space. The event itself, being stuck in the elevator, remains the same, but your chosen response transforms the entire experience. This principle extends far beyond elevators or unexpected encounters. It applies to every aspect of life. If someone insults you, you cannot control their words, but you can control whether you respond with anger, indifference, or even compassion. If a plan falls apart, you cannot control the loss of that opportunity, but you can decide whether to dwell in frustration or to see it as a redirection towards something better. If fear arises before a challenge, you cannot control the fact that fear appears, but you can decide whether to let it paralyze you or to let it energize you. The difference always comes down to whether you react unconsciously or respond consciously. Choosing response over reaction requires awareness, but it also requires practice. At first, the urge to react feels overwhelming because it is wired into your nervous system through habit. When someone pushes your buttons, the mind and body surge with energy, and it feels almost impossible not to lash out or shut down. But if you can extend that gap, even slightly, you gain space to make a decision. One deep breath can be enough to interrupt the automatic reaction and give you room to choose. With practice, that space becomes larger, and your ability to respond thoughtfully becomes stronger. This is how emotional mastery develops, moment by moment, choice by choice. One of the greatest benefits of choosing your response is that it shifts the sense of control back to you. When you react impulsively, you are essentially handing your power over to the situation or to the other person. You are saying, "You control how I feel, you control how I act, you control the outcome." But when you choose your response, you are declaring, "I am the one in charge of my inner state. Circumstances may be outside my control, but my response belongs to me." That shift in perspective changes the way you carry yourself, because you no longer feel at the mercy of life. You feel empowered to navigate it. This does not mean that choosing your response is about suppressing feelings. Suppression is simply another form of reaction. It pushes emotions down, only for them to erupt later. Choosing your response means acknowledging your feelings fully, noticing their presence, and then deciding how to express them in a way that serves you rather than harms you. For instance, if you feel anger, you might choose to express it calmly by setting a boundary rather than exploding in rage. If you feel fear, you might choose to move forward cautiously rather than letting it stop you completely. If you feel sadness, you might allow yourself to experience it without letting it define your actions. The key is that you become the director of the energy rather than the actor blindly driven by it. In every situation, there is a split second where you can ask yourself, what outcome do I want here? What response will bring me closer to peace, to growth, to strength? That simple question reorients the mind from reaction to choice. If your neighbor irritates you, your reaction might be to snap back, but your chosen response could be to remain composed because your true outcome is to keep your peace. If your environment feels suffocating, your reaction might be to panic, but your chosen response could be to breathe steadily because your outcome is to maintain control over yourself. By aligning your response with your desired outcome, you ensure that even in difficult moments, you are moving in the direction of your higher self. This power of choice is what separates freedom from bondage. People often think freedom comes from controlling the external world, but true freedom comes from mastering the internal world. Life will never be free of challenges, frustrations, or negative feelings. But life can be free of unnecessary suffering when you realize that you are not required to react automatically to them. Choosing response over reaction means you step into the role of creator rather than victim. You stop living on autopilot and begin living intentionally. When you embody this practice consistently, others notice it. They see the calm in your presence, the steadiness in your actions, the clarity in your decisions. They might even wonder how you maintain composure in situations where most people would fall apart. The truth is not that you feel nothing. It is that you have developed the discipline to choose how to direct your feelings. You are no longer a prisoner of impulses. You are the master of your response. This mastery builds trust within yourself because you know you can handle whatever comes your way without losing your center. The journey to choosing response over reaction is lifelong, but every small moment of practice strengthens your inner foundation. Every time you take a breath before speaking, every time you choose patience over anger, every time you remain calm in uncertainty, you are training your mind and body to serve you instead of enslave you. Over time, this becomes your natural way of being, and you discover a level of inner freedom that external circumstances can never take away.